Greetings of peace. My name is Ra Hotep, broadcasting on behalf of 13signsastrology.com. That's the number 13, signs plural, astrology.com. The reason for this video is because I got a recent inquiry, actually several recent inquiries in regards to and pertaining to my views on heaven and hell. What are my views on heaven and hell? Where do you go when you die? What are my views on death? Heaven and hell, first of all, is a concept that is misunderstood, totally misunderstood here in Western society. When you go into Eastern societies and Eastern civilizations, you will get a very good understanding and overstanding and understanding as to exactly what heaven and hell is. Now, in order to understand and overstand and understand heaven and hell, you must first understand exactly what death is. Now, when you die, this is a known fact, when you die, basically your body terminates, your heart stops beating, all the life force in the ether leaves the body, and within 48 hours the body starts to go into a state of hardness, and there is no life there. The body begins to get cold and death sets in. So with that being said, death is linked to the physical body. When we talk about death, we're looking at the physical body. So the question is that are humans only limited to the physical body? Now, from a metaphysical, occult, and so-called New Age perspective, I would definitely offer this information and teach you that you're not limited to your physical body. The physical body is a shell that houses the spirit, and it also houses the soul. And this is the key to understanding exactly what death is and what death isn't. Most of your religions, when they deal with the concept of heaven and hell, they limit it to a physical place. They look at heaven and hell as a physical place. But yet and still, the God that they serve, they teach that you cannot see him or her or whatever they call it or it. They say that you can't see him, but then they say that hell is a physical place and heaven is a physical place. And God is supposed to be the ruler of heaven. So if God is the ruler of heaven and you can't see him or her, depending on the school of thought that these people come from, if you can't see him or her, then how could heaven be a physical place? It's not physical. Many of your religious adherents further believe that when you go to heaven, there are roads of gold. The God is sitting on a throne, that they will see their loved ones when they get to the other side. And that this is a place, that's the key word. And as far as hell, the description goes is that it's mostly composed of fire. There's an evil entity called the devil there, disagreeable entity, and he's there to punish the wicked for their evil deeds. And that's what the devil is. His purpose is to punish you for your evil deeds. And this is where they get their concept of heaven and hell from. And I know many people aren't going to like this, but that's totally bullshit. It's totally bull. For one thing, when we go into the terminology, I'm going to walk you through exactly what I feel and believe as what the life after death state consists of. I've done research on this, in-depth research on this for years. And I've experienced states of the astral plane, which is something that I'm going to cover here. But before I get into that, let me first say that the term heaven means the sky up there. That's what the term heaven means. It's dealing with the sky, like basically like outer space. That's heaven. That's what the term literally means when you look it up. Now the term hell, it deals with the underworld. See, they got the concept of hell from the underworld, and hell originally meant to conceal, because this hell was supposedly the underworld. The Egyptians called it, I believe, Dua. And they got the concept of hell from the concept of the underworld. From the concept of the underworld. But the thing is you have to first understand and understand where exactly is this underworld. What did the ancients mean when they came up with the concept of the underworld? Because Christianity, Islam, Judaism borrowed their concepts of heaven and hell from ancient schools of thought. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism are no more than 4,000 years old. All of these religions combined are no more than 4,000 years old. So they got their concept of heaven and hell from the ancients. And the ancients dealt with the concept of hell to them in their mind state before. I'm talking about prior to Christianity, prior to Judaism. See, they didn't think like you. Their concept of heaven and hell was the underworld. And the question is, where is the underworld? And I'm going to let you know where the underworld is. Not was, is. You see, the ancient Egyptians, which are some of the original architects of the system of the underworld as far as teaching the concept and the school of thought of the underworld, they taught and believed that we are in the underworld right now. This is the underworld. And what happened is that we were once light beings. We vibrated much higher and much faster. And we existed on a different dimension, which is, I don't want you to mistake this as a different place, because a dimension does not denote place. We existed on a different dimension. And a dimension is dealing with your vibratory rate. See, the dimension that we existed on can be found right here on Earth. There are various dimensions of Earth. And we existed on the fourth dimension, which is a higher dimension from the third dimensional reality. But what happened was that we fell. Man fell because he began to identify with his lower self and lower vibrational energies and spirits. And this is how we became encapsulated and captured and enslaved in the flesh. This came from the concept of the underworld. And the ancient Egyptians further taught that your body was a sarcophagus. Your body was a tomb or a sarcophagus, that the light being and the soul existed within, and you were trapped here because of your own doings in another dimension and another reality. So this is how we got here. That's the first thing that we have to understand and overstand and understand before we can even get into the concept of heaven, hell, and life after death, is you have to understand how you got here. And that's how you got here. The ancient Hindus, in the ancient Hindu doctrine, they dealt with the astral plane, which is the same thing as I was just explaining how the ancient Egyptians dealt with when we were light beings. To the ancient Hindus, we existed on the astral plane prior to becoming physical beings. We existed on the astral plane, and what happened is we fell, or we were cast out of the heavens, or the astral plane, which is a level of the heavens, and we became flesh beings. And this is the lowest vibratory rate, being in the flesh. And the murky ethers of the flesh is the lowest vibratory rate. And this is considered hell, or the underworld. See, that's exactly what it meant. So this is hell. And that's why you have a lot of people that are disagreeable, dishonest, angry, depressed, because they're in hell. And this is hell. Right now, you're in hell. You're dead. This is death. So when the body expires, the soul becomes free again. And based on your works, and based on not just your works, but based on your fulfilling your obligations of your soul, based on you fulfilling the obligations that your soul prescribed for you and presented to you upon your incarnating here, will determine as to whether or not you ascend through various levels of the astral plane. See, the astral plane, there's various levels of the astral plane. You hear in the different scriptures, such as the Bible and Quran, of the seven heavens. The seven heavens are talking about the different levels of the astral plane. and based on what you do as far as your works for yourself, your soul. There is no barrier or basis. There is no standard when it comes to one ascending to the astral plane. Like, you can't tell a person that they're not going to make it to heaven because they did X, Y, and Z. Because all of this is predicated upon what that particular soul chose to, why they chose to incarnate here, and as to whether or not that particular soul fulfilled its obligation. That's what heaven is, or that's what the judgment will be based on, I should say. The judgment will be based on whether or not that soul fulfilled its obligation. And only you can determine that. In the way that, the best way to determine what your obligation is and what your soul purpose is by getting a natal chart, believe it or not. Because we incarnated here with a blueprint. So your natal chart acts as a job description as to why you signed up and why you contracted, as I talked about in other videos, why you contracted to come here on this planet. You will look at your natal chart to find this out. Why you chose to be a Leo, why you chose to be a Virgo, why you chose to be a Pisces, why you chose to be an Aquarius. It's based on your natal chart. Because this is the energy and the star constellations that you chose to incarnate up under. So when we deal with heaven, heaven is the astral plane, or when you lose the flesh and you go back to the state. And if you didn't fulfill your mission and obligation in life, then you will have to reincarnate back. And even if you did fulfill your mission and obligation in life, the ascended masters, or what you would call angels, there are ascended masters on the other side. And they will tell you as to whether or not you fulfilled your obligation, and they will debrief you and get you prepared for your next incarnation. And even when you go to the other world, or the other side, you have a life there. The soul exists as an outside entity there. And you have a life there. And you have a job and a description when you go to the other side. Just like on this side, you have a job and a description. So there's not much of a difference. And the memory, the imagination, the creativity are the things that you carry over to the other side. It's not the physical flesh and blood body. You see, many of us, we grieve death. When a loved one dies, we cry. And we're hurt. But you should be celebrating because that loved one is free from the sarcophagus of this world's life and the death state that this world has to offer. And you should be celebrating the fact that this soul transitioned. That's what we call it. It's not death. It's transformation or transition. That's what we call it in astrology. There's different states. The soul goes through a state of slumber when it first transitions from the physical body into the etheric realm or the astral realm. It goes through a slumber state. This is what we call it in the occult. And the slumber state is similar to a sleep state, but it's on the other side. And in the slumber state, this is the state when the soul begins to forget, almost in a sleep state. And it takes a certain amount of time, but the soul forgets the fact that it was a human and that it incarnated as a human. And it goes through a process of getting registered and processed into the astral plane, or what some people call the soul plane. You see, so the concept of Western society and Western religion has it all wrong. They have it all wrong because they've been missing. They base their concepts on older Eastern principles and concepts. That's basically what it comes down to. So, for instance, a murderer or a thief will be judged based on his own soul, and as to why he did a thing. If a thief can justify it to his own soul, and I'm not talking about intellectually justified, I'm talking about on a soul level, so it's not an intellectual justification. If a thief can truly, in his heart chakra, can justify from his heart, not from his mind, from his heart, as to why he's stealing a thing to survive, then he will not be judged for that action. But if the thief is just stealing to get over and manipulate from people and on people, and the heart cannot live with this, the heart will judge him in the end. Because you get judged from the heart. This is what the ancients believed. Judgment was based on the heart. You see, so this is a deep topic as far as heaven and hell, life after death, and things of this nature. I could go further, and I would do a part 2 to this because I only have 15 minutes. But this is the basis of the concept of heaven and hell, life after death, and my views on it. These are my views on it based on my research of the occult and the Eastern religions and the metaphysical schools and occult schools that predated Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. I hope you learned something from this. For more information, visit my website. Until we meet again, peace and love.